New Star Games is famous for mobile games like Retro Bowl, College Retro Bowl, and Retro Goal. Games that take on the style of old school sports games in new and fun ways. Well, their latest game is no different. New Star GP is a spin on the classic arcade racer with all sorts of features, updates, and bells and whistles of current gen gaming. New Star GP used to be a top-down racer back in the day, but this is a whole new take on that game. New Star GP is basically an evolution of Formula One, but without the F1 branding. When you boot up the game, you're met with the new style of F1 cars, but that is not what this game is. You have two modes to pick from, Career and Championship. Career mode is the bread and butter of this game, and it's where you should spend most of your time. You start out in 1980s inspired cars, but as the career progresses, you can drive the 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and 2020 inspired cars. Each of them gets faster and faster as you progress through the career mode. I will talk about the championship mode real quick. It's basically just a season mode where you can pick any era of car you want, any livery that you want, and you can even customize the schedule if you want. It's a nice feature just to pick up and play and to be able to drive the newer cars if you haven't had them unlocked, but again, the career mode should be where you spend most of your time. As I said, you start out in the 1980s era in the career mode. So your goal from the beginning is to continue to win championships so you can unlock the next era of cars. Now, if this was just a season or championship mode where you could unlock cars by just winning the championship, that would be one thing. But New Star GP takes this to a whole new level. You have a team, and you're focused on the day-to-day life of trying to keep everyone in that team happy. You'll have multiple situations where you'll have to choose between two people and what they want to do to the car, the strategy, or just hanging out in real life. And if you don't choose them, boy, they're not happy. You have engineers, marketing managers, pit managers, etc. You need to keep them all happy and listen to their feedback, because when they become unhappy, they're hard to work with and they don't do as good of a job. At any point, anyone can call you up and ask for your opinion and for you to make a change. And how you respond affects their happiness level. I even had our chief engineer miss a race because he got hurt by falling off a ladder, and I didn't get to use his upgrades for that race. Other teams and employees can call you and they'll ask if you'll hire them on the spot. You can say yes or no, but obviously you'll fire your current team. Rival drivers can call you after races, and you can talk crap about them to the press, and your media manager would be happy, and then they'll call you back again and be like, "What the hell, man? Why would you say that?" And it's just great. There's also media clippings after the race where you can see stuff that happened with other teams, and most of the time it's funny too. This game can be absolutely hilarious, and I enjoy it. It always feels like there's something to unlock, somebody calling you, something going on, somebody asking your opinion. So it feels like something is always happening in this game. And honestly, it's nice. It makes it feel like it won't get too boring after a while. Just constantly throwing something in your face can be a little overwhelming, but once you get used to it, you won't think anything of it. There's lots of different options for car customization, different schemes, colors, wraps. You can even run a different car model when you unlock it. The car has plenty of different upgrades to unlock, from braking to tire wear, aerodynamics, gear shifting, etc. You can even license and buy upgrades from other teams instead of developing them yourself. It's pretty crazy the amount of depth in this little arcade racer. There's a trophy room where you can see your trophies from each circuit and the different cars and car models that you've unlocked. And there's a whole comprehensive stat page and has a really nice layout. The career mode is very, very deep for what it is, and honestly, it surprised me. I think you'll have some fun with it. During each race weekend, there are multiple things you can do aside from just run the basic GP. There's a time trial to familiarize yourself with the circuit, elimination races, or sometimes a rival will challenge you to a head-to-head race. You earn points and things in all of these to purchase upgrades, but I wouldn't recommend spending them all as soon as you get them. I had multiple instances where I spent all my points, and then my engineer called me before the race and said, "Hey, we need some points so we can fix this critical issue that you might have during the race." And unfortunately, I didn't have the money. So we had to go into that race with a big chance of a failure, and it happens sometimes, and it puts you behind the 8 ball and can ruin your weekend. Now, let's talk about the on-track action. First, you'll notice that this game is a retro 3DS type game. It has a retro style. Polygonal graphics that are kind of like the 90s, but they look new and modern and fresh with an updated frame rate. So it looks really good and it's charming. All of their tracks have their own feel and flair, and if you're familiar with F1, you'll notice that almost all of them are very similar to their real life tracks. But not exactly. It has a little bit of flavor to them, just so they're not exactly the same. But if you're familiar with F1 and have drove those games, you'll know a lot of the layouts and you'll be like, oh, I know exactly where to go and what's happening here. They are fun, they feel good, and they are natural to race on. The ambience around the track is pretty good too, with helicopters and blimps, the crowds and the billboards. A lot of times you'll see the grandstands will have flags and they'll be having smoke flares and all sorts of different things. Just the ambience of the track looks good, it feels good, and it brings a lot to the game. When you actually start racing, the handling feels really good. Hitting curbs and bumps has weight, and sometimes you can get air if it's a big downhill drop. Just turning even feels nice. I wouldn't say it's too tight or too slick or floaty. It feels really, really good. There is a boost mechanic, and they've tinkered it to where it isn't too overpowered. When I first got this game in early access, it was a little too easy and the boost was really overpowered, but I think it's a lot better now. Your car can take damage from going over the bumps and cutting the curbs and hitting other vehicles, but it takes a lot to do that. You'll notice it as your front bumper and your rear wing can sway and move a lot, and you'll notice that you'll have a lot of sparks and stuff come off your car if you damage it or damage the underbody and stuff. There is tire strategy in this game. You can start off on hards or softs. You can pick a one-stop or a two-stop, but most of the time a one-stop is really just going to be perfect, and you don't need to even do the two-stop. I mean, sometimes you can go from hards to softs, but most of the time I just go hards to hards. I do think that could be tinkered with a little bit. It just seems like the base strategy is hards. Some tracks do have more wear, like the Monaco S track, but most of the time it's just hard, and you go on your way. There is weather in this game. In our single race, you could go from sunny to a complete torrential downpour back to sunny again, or you can start with it being wet and then get to sunny. Since it's a 6-lap race or so, most of the time it goes by pretty quick. So I felt pretty rarely that I rarely had a complete wet race. It always changed, but still, it's great that it's in here and it makes it feel really good to have different styles and options. Just having a weather system in this game was something I didn't expect at all. After it does rain and starts to dry out, you'll even have puddles and stuff, big puddles on the track, and if you hit them on slicks, your car will slide. And it's actually pretty realistic, even for being an arcade racer. The AI, for the most part, is fine. I don't feel like they are the best in the world, but I have had some really intense good racing with them. Their tire strategy and pit calls leave a little to be desired. I feel like 3/4 of the cars will do the two-stopper when it's not necessary. So you'll be like going on to the final lap or final 2 laps, and you're like, oh, I'm in 5th. I've got a lot of work to do. This is going to be a good finish, and then they'll just pit. I did have a problem in early access a lot where they would pit on the last lap and just give the leader a win away when they could probably make it, but they want to fulfill that 2-stop criteria. I don't feel like it's as bad in the full release of the game, but it's still there, and it's still something I wish would be tinkered. They just kind of just pick a strategy at random, and I wish they would find the optimal strategy and do it. They do wreck and they do crash. They can have some pretty spectacular crashes by flipping sometimes. I have seen AI cars just wreck by themselves. It is kind of sporadic when that does happen, but overall it is decent. They are fun enough to race against. When I first had this game in early access, this game was way too easy. I recommended a hard mode, and they came out with one. So I would recommend when you start up your career to pick the hardest difficulty or the pro mode, because you just don't want to win every race. I noticed after the fact, and they've even updated it more since they've added the pro mode, that I went from winning every race to it being very difficult to finish on the podium, especially without upgrades. So this game can provide you a good challenge, and it's a lot of fun. You and AI cars can have mechanical failures. I have seen AI cars just trudge around the track with a tire blowout or a failure. Your engineer will let you know at the top of the screen if other cars have failures, and it does feel like they have them a lot, but I mean, it's better than nothing for sure. Um, you can blow out tires by staying out too long, or you can run out of fuel, etc., etc. You'll notice that the AI drivers in each era mimic real-life drivers. I'm not going to say them, but if you take a look, you'll see that they mimic a lot of the drivers of that era, and it's pretty funny, and it's honestly pretty great. There are multiple different camera views you can use, all the way from your chase cam to cockpit to top down. They all feel nice and feel good. I don't really have any issues with them. You can pick the one that you like the most. So this game does have a damage meter and like on the side, and a tire wear thing. You'll see your car's tires slowly go from green to red, and that determines how worn they are. But you can also tell from the tires themselves. When you get a fresh pair on or set, they will be black, and as you progress through the run, they'll turn wider and wider, and you'll notice that because that's them wearing. That's something EA Sports barely gets right with the F1 game on there. It's just an unnecessary thing they added that makes it feel a little bit more realistic, even for it being a 3D polygonal game. Overall, this game is pretty darn great. It is $30 right now on PlayStation, Steam, Xbox, and the Switch. I would highly recommend you pick it up. The developers have shown a lot of care for this. They've been super nice to me, but I did not get a review code. This is not that I am not paid for this whatsoever, but they have been great. They've shown a lot of effort into this, and I think it's worth your dollar. This is a great, fun arcade simulation type game that balances it pretty well, and I think it's a game that you could have a lot of fun with. It's addicting. It's hard to put down, easy to pick up and play, and just it's a really fun game, and I think you would enjoy it if you picked it up, and I did because I played it. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I know it's not a perfect style review, but I had a good time, and I hope you did too. So we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.